Do you believe you heard the killer coming down the stairs as you were trying to get into the house?
To this day, I do. He was still there when I came home. I entered the bedroom. I saw Robin naked on the floor. I was screaming for help.
To come home and find your 11-year-old like that, just heart-wrenching.
I started doing CPR. I had to keep trying. I thought I'd get a miracle. I thought for sure God would let me breathe life back into her.
This was somebody that had something against the family.
The terror was extreme.
No one had a clue who it was. We lived in fear.
It was shocking to think that this type of evil was roaming our streets.
Everyone was a suspect to me.
My partner at the time used to say, we have the lock, we have the DNA, we just need the key.
How do you think you were able to take the trauma you experienced into advocacy for your daughter?
In the beginning, I wanted to die, but I was going to find this monster that killed her. He was out there.
And tonight, we're on the case in Cape Coral, Florida, a quaint city known for its breathtaking waterfront views. But that beautiful backdrop became the unlikely setting for a terrifying double homicide when 11-year-old Robin Cornell and 32-year-old Lisa Story were brutally murdered in their own beds. The crime scene quickly raised many puzzling questions, but the answers were elusive. And the case may have never been solved if not for one woman's relentless crusade to get justice for two families. May 10th, 1990. It was just after 4 on a humid Florida morning when Jan Cornell raced to the front door of her 2-story condo. Even though it was still hours before dawn, the 38-year-old mother was already late for her shift at a nearby hospital. She had accidentally dozed off at her boyfriend's apartment the night before.
I panicked when I realized I had fallen asleep. I had to get showered and go to work.
Still, Jan was cautious to be quiet. She didn't want to wake up her 11-year-old daughter, Robin, or their new roommate, her coworker, Lisa Story. What happened when you got to the front door of your home?
I put my key in the lock and went to open the door to go in, but the bottom lock was locked on the door.
Jan was frustrated. The handle lock was broken and could not be opened from the outside. She had even reminded Robin and Lisa about the problem as she left for her boyfriend's the night before.
I said, don't lock the bottom lock, because if you do, I'm gonna have to wake you up. I won't be able to get in.
Jan now banged on the door, still unaware of the nightmare that awaited her inside.
I'm saying their name, Lisa, Robin, and I heard footsteps.
Jan expected the front door to open, but it never did. Confused and now worried, Jan looked for another way into the condo.
I ran around to the side, and when I got on the patio, my sliding glass doors were open, and the verticals were blowing through them.
The fluttering blinds sent a chill through Jan. Did things seem out of place?
Yeah, the kitchen light was on, and the ironing board was out. There were pictures laying flat on the ironing board.
The pictures were of her two daughters, 11-year-old Robin and 19-year-old Jenny, who had just moved out of the house a few weeks before.
Why would those pictures be there? And that's when I really panicked and ran up the stairs.
Jan glanced into her new housemate Lisa Story's room first. It appeared that her friend was sleeping on her side, facing away from the door. Then she looked across the hall and saw her daughter Robin on the floor. What did you actually see?
When I entered the bedroom, I saw Robin. She had a rolled up pillow underneath her abdomen and she was naked.
Jan was stunned. She grabbed her 11-year-old and cradled her in her arms. She was cold to the touch. She began shouting at her friend Lisa, assuming the 32-year-old was somehow responsible.
I was screaming horrible things to her. You need to get up and help me.
But Lisa didn't respond. Jan grabbed the phone, called 911, and desperately tried to perform CPR on her daughter. The strength you have is extraordinary to try to bring your daughter back to life.
I knew when I touched her, she was gone. But I had to keep trying. I thought I'd get a miracle. I thought for sure God would let me breathe life back into her.
But there were no miracles that morning, only heartbreak. Minutes later, first responders arrived and tried to get information from Jan. But she was so hysterical, she couldn't speak. She simply pointed to the upstairs bedrooms. It was then that her thoughts returned to her friend, Lisa Story.
When the paramedics came down, I said, "Did you wake her up? What did she say?" And they said she's dead.
A second wave of pain washed over Jan Cornell. It was now clear that someone had broken in and murdered her daughter Robin and her new housemate, Lisa Story. As Jan tried to process that devastating news, lead detective Todd Everly arrived at the crime scene to begin investigating the double homicide. Describe to me what you saw when you entered the home.
It's a 2-story townhouse. When we started walking upstairs, we noticed some jewelry on the steps. We started collecting that evidence and photographing it and bagging it. And then we got to the spare bedroom. That's where Lisa's Story was renting a room. She just moved in.
In fact, Lisa hadn't even unpacked yet, but her personal items were strewn all over the room.
Every box was completely gone through. It was like a tornado hit the room. We found Lisa dead on the bed. She was partially clothed, turned on her side, a pillow half covering her head area.
Was it obvious how she was killed?
At that time, we were suspecting that it was asphyxiation.
Detective Everly then moved to the other bedroom where Robin Cornell had been murdered.
We found her on her back. She was completely naked from chest down.
Based on the bruising on Robin's face and neck, police theorized that she had been smothered. The grisly scene convinced police that the 11-year-old had been sexually assaulted. Was anything missing?
Yes, Lisa's checkbook was gone, some credit cards, her ID.
Investigators also discovered that a new watch Lisa had engraved for her boyfriend had been stolen.
The packaging was opened and found on the bed.
While officers documented what was taken, crime scene investigators diligently sifted through the condo for anything the killer may have left behind. What evidence did you collect at the crime scene?
We took hair and fiber from the bodies, any type of fluids that were visible. We took well over 100 pieces of evidence from that crime scene.
But so far, none of that evidence pointed investigators to a suspect. They hoped that Jan Cornell's story might help them make sense of the chaos and provide a lead on how the killer had entered her home.
When Jan got home, she came around here to the side, found this gate standing wide open, as well as the sliding glass door. This is where police believe the killer entered and exited as well.
Jan then gave detectives another valuable clue when she mentioned the photos of her daughters that had been displayed on her ironing board. Police saw that as a message left by the man responsible for the double homicide.
It was like scripted. He took these pictures down from the walls and placed them on an ironing board so when you walked in, you would see them.
Investigators believe there was only one reason the killer would have staged the crime scene in such a cruel way.
There was some type of a revenge motive that we had to look at. This was somebody that had something against the family or even Jan herself.
As detectives waded through the mayhem left in the wake of the murders of 11-year-old Robin Cornell and 32-year-old Lisa Story, they began to formulate a shocking theory of the crime. It appeared the two victims had been carefully chosen by a sadistic killer. But why? Police believed their only hope in answering that question relied on the memories of a grief-stricken mother who had just lost a close friend and her youngest child. What was Robin like?
Robin was very easygoing, always smiling. It just brought so much joy.
Robin loved sports and the outdoors. She and her best friend, Jolie Wilson, were inseparable.
She was just the nicest person. The way she made me feel was like I mattered. Jan was single, my mom was single, and I just totally trusted her, and it was awesome.
Friends and family saw a maturity in Robin that was well beyond her years. Robin was only 11 years old, but I understand she had some pretty big dreams. What did she see for herself?
Oh my God, she just wanted to be a writer. She wrote little stories and poems about everything.
Jan desperately wanted Robin to have everything she needed to achieve her goal. But as a single parent, money was tight. That's why she made an offhand offer to her friend Lisa Story to rent the empty bedroom in her condo after her older daughter Jenny had moved out.
About a week later, Lisa said, "Were you serious?" And I said, "Yeah."
Those closest to Lisa's story remember just how excited she was about the opportunity.
Oh my goodness, she was like, "Oh, I can't wait for you to see it. You guys will have to come over."
What was Lisa's personality like?
She was very outgoing, very friendly. Everybody knew who she was. She liked most everybody.
It was that easygoing spirit that made Lisa seem like the ideal housemate for Jan and her younger daughter. But that perfect match had ended in the worst way possible on the very first night.
Her brother called us on the phone. He said, "Lisa's been murdered." And I said, "What?"
Loved ones told police it was impossible for them to believe that Lisa was the intended target of the attack. She simply had no enemies. And that forced detectives to start the investigation by retracing the hours leading up to the murders. Jan said after her boyfriend and Robin helped Lisa move the final boxes upstairs to her new room, the four of them sat down on the couch to watch a playoff basketball game. It was starting to get late, when Jan made a choice that will haunt her the rest of her life.
The basketball game we were watching was going into overtime, and my boyfriend just lived a few blocks away. So I made the decision to go over there and finish watching the game. I wasn't gonna go, but both her and Robin said, go ahead and go. They said, we're just going to bed.
Jan assumed she'd be back before midnight.
I actually thought I'd probably be home like within an hour, but that didn't happen. I fell asleep.
It was just after 4 a.m. when Jan awakened and raced home. Every detail of Jan's story was carefully checked and verified. The confirmation left a 5-hour window in which the crime had taken place. Detectives hoped that the medical examiner's report would narrow the timeline even further. What was determined to be the cause of death for both Robin and Lisa?
After the autopsy was confirmed, it was asphyxiation.
Did the medical examiner confirm that both victims had been sexually assaulted?
Yes, they were both sexually assaulted.
Biological evidence was recovered from both victims.
There was also a single hair found on Lisa's hip that was collected.
Testing revealed that the suspect was a white male with type O blood. But in the early days of DNA, that evidence did little to narrow the detectives' list. They would have to take a hard look at every man who knew Jan, Lisa, or Robin, and determine if one of them was secretly a cold-blooded killer. Police were working around the clock to solve one of the city's most horrific double murders. And they had to view everyone as a suspect, even those closest to the victims. Based on everything you saw at the scene, was it your belief that it was likely that the killer knew someone in the Cornell family or in Lisa Story's family?
At that point, we didn't know. We looked at all those avenues. Everything was on the table. Was this somebody that they knew? You usually look at family members first and friends.
How did you go about eliminating anyone who might have been associated with the Cornell or Story family?
We took hundreds of blood samples and hair samples, people voluntarily giving them to us.
But the painstaking process failed to reveal a suspect. The results were disappointing and a relief at the same time.
Until they DNA'd every man I knew in my life, I couldn't talk to anybody. They had to be cleared by DNA.
Once friends and family were ruled out, detectives began the massive task of testing the Cornell's neighbors.
The Courtyards North is a large complex. It's about 140 units. So there was a lot of foot traffic that would go through the sidewalks and the walkways through there.
When police discussed their efforts with Jan, it triggered her memory. She suddenly remembered a disturbing encounter she had had with a stranger the day before the murders.
My bedroom window faced a sidewalk through this courtyard. The cat was crying to get in, and I was standing there with a little shirt on and my underwear, and there was a guy walking through with a ball cap on, and he stopped. He was smirking and watching.
Police now wondered if the man may have been stalking Jan and her family for longer than she knew. Did you think the Peeping Tom incident could have been connected to the murders?
Yes, it was somebody that we wanted to look into a little further.
Investigators went to work trying to assemble a lineup of men for Jan to view.
This apartment complex is massive in size, and back in 1990, the detectives were making contact with everyone that they could here, specifically looking for someone that matched the description that Jan gave of the peeping Tom.
Police tried to narrow their focus by prioritizing men with a history of sex-related crimes. The plan quickly led to a suspect. Why did a man named Robert get your attention?
We started interviewing the girlfriend at the time. She started giving us some clues. He had some tendencies of being a peeping Tom.
Did she know him to be a violent person?
She did. She told investigators some pretty intimate details that aligned with the injuries that both victims sustained.
And there was more.
She said that he did not return to her place that night as she had expected him to.
In fact, Robert had disappeared from her life the day after the murders. Investigators began a search for him at his last Cape Coral address. Had he told his landlord that he was leaving?
No, she was surprised that he left.
And she shared another suspicious detail. Robert had left in a hurry, even though his rent was paid through the end of the month. Detectives asked to look inside the room where he had been staying. What was collected from his room?
She voluntarily gave us the bed sheets, the pillow casing, and that was packaged and sent off to see if that could be used to compare with our crime scene.
While the lab started the testing, detectives went to work tracking down Robert. They had a lot of questions to ask him.
Robert definitely was a suspect.
Cape Coral detectives, searching for the man responsible for the brutal double homicide of Robin Cornell and Lisa Story, followed tips on their suspect's whereabouts all the way to Mississippi. And when their search finally led them to the front door of Robert's new girlfriend, police were ready for action.
We had a search warrant for blood samples, hair samples, so we can compare the known evidence that we had.
But that's when the plan hit a roadblock. Robert was out of town working on an oil rig. Investigators had no choice but to wait for his return. Did he eventually come back?
Yeah, a car pulled up and a male got out of a vehicle. We asked, "Are you Robert?" And originally he said no. And then he paused and he says, "Yes, I'm Robert."
Investigators were confident his sketchy behavior meant they were on the right track, and they took him in for questioning. What did he say when you asked him directly if he had anything to do with the murders?
He said he did not have anything to do with the murders. And he did not know either victims or anyone who lived in Unit 100.
Investigators remained skeptical and pressed him for information. What was Robert's alibi for the night of the murders?
He said that he was out drinking at one of the local bars, had several drinks, and stayed at one of his friend's house.
The alibi explained why Robert hadn't returned to his girlfriend's condo on the night of the murder. And he told detectives that his new love interest and a job opportunity on the oil rig were the only reasons he had ducked out of Cape Coral without a goodbye. But those easy answers ended suddenly once police brought up his troubling past. What happened when you started to ask him about his peeping Tom incidents?
He shut down and ended the questioning. He did not want to speak to us anymore.
Still, investigators didn't need his permission to obtain samples of his blood and hair. Detectives believed they were now a lab report away from an arrest. But the results were not what they had expected. How surprised were you when the lab results came back? and there wasn't a match between the samples that Robert provided and the evidence at the crime scene.
I was surprised. We had a lot that led to him.
Instead, detectives were back at square one. And the pressure they felt to solve the case was growing. How much were these violent, brutal murders discussed?
It was shocking that there had been a double homicide in Cape Coral.
We never had anything like this. This was highly unusual for us.
People were frightened because the person wasn't caught.
For Jan Cornell, the emotions in the months after the attack were totally different.
I was mad every day I woke up because if I wasn't there that night, why am I here? Why am I here? All I want to do is die because of what happened that night.
But somehow, she was able to put those paralyzing feelings aside and find a way forward.
What kind of legacy would that leave for Robin's sister that she loved so much? So I made up my mind that I was going to find this person, no matter what it took, because he was out there.
Jan embarked on her own one-woman crusade to keep the double homicide in the public eye and make sure that every detective on the case knew she would never rest without justice. They all quickly gravitated to her cause.
Janet Cornell, she's a very special lady. She is a very strong-willed individual, definitely a force of nature. She was going to move heaven and earth to make sure whoever did this got caught. And if you didn't like it, oh well, too bad.
But despite Jan's relentless push, the investigation remained stuck at the same roadblock.
We had the killer's DNA right at that crime scene in a location that if we ever tap the right guy on the shoulder, this case is done. He's never gonna talk his way out of this. But the problem is we don't have any viable suspects.
Eventually, it was the passage of time that sparked new hope. Advancements in DNA technology that led to the launch of the CODIS database. When the killer's DNA profile was entered into CODIS, were there any hits?
There was no hits, nothing.
Despite one setback after another, the years of hard work ultimately deepened the relationships investigators had with both victims' families. And those close ties led to the most difficult moment of Detective Charlie Garrett's career. Meeting with Lisa Story's mother while she was on her deathbed, without the answers she so desperately wanted. Tell me about the last conversation you had with Lisa Story's mother.
Wow. I felt that I should go out and talk with her about the case. I kind of dreaded it, to be honest with you, because I knew how emotional it was going to be. She was like, please don't forget my daughter. And I said, no matter how long it takes, no matter what we've got to do, we will never stop until we catch the person responsible for taking your daughter away from you.
Jan Cornell made Lisa's dying mother the same promise.
She said, you will never stop looking for who hurt them. And I said, I promise you, I won't. And I promised, we're gonna find him. We're gonna find him.
For more than 25 years, law enforcement never gave up on solving the tragic double homicide of Robin Cornell and Lisa Story. Approximately how many leads did investigators chase over the years?
Thousands. We never let this case go. It's always been actively worked.
Although the decades without progress were painfully frustrating, the patience and persistence of investigator Christy Ellis eventually paid off. Take me back to September of 2016, when a call came in that you describe as the highlight of your career.
My phone rang, and it was somebody from the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, and they said, we got a hit on the Cornell Story case. You what? Hang on. Back up. Let me pick my jaw off the floor.
One of the reasons the veteran investigator was so shocked was that the DNA evidence from the crime scene had been in the CODIS system for years. That meant any hit had to have come from a new sample that was only recently uploaded. After digesting the amazing news, Detective Ellis asked her colleague for the name that had eluded her for so long. What was the name that you were given?
Joseph Zeiler.
Once again, Detective Ellis was stunned. Joseph Zeiler's name was nowhere in the massive case file. Police were also surprised to learn that Zeiler had a limited criminal history.
In the early 80s, he had been arrested for grand theft auto, for burglary, and then right after our homicide, he was arrested for concealed weapons and resisting arrest.
But for the next 26 years, Zeiler had never reappeared on law enforcement's radar.
To think that he was in the community the entire time, the fact that he was still here with a family was just crazy.
Then a bizarre encounter led to his DNA being placed in the system. How did Zeiler's DNA end up in CODIS?
Joseph Zeiler was involved in an altercation with his adult son, wound up shooting his son in the chest with a pellet gun that actually broke the skin. Joseph Zeiler was arrested for that aggravated battery, and when he was arrested, he was swabbed.
Since Zeiler was already behind bars following his arrest for that incident, police didn't have to go far to question him face to face. What was your plan going into the interview?
The plan was to try to talk to him, get background information. It would be lovely if he admitted to what had happened.
But the interrogation got off to a rocky start when Zeiler claimed he was impaired by head injuries he sustained in a 1998 motorcycle accident.
I have a hard time with my memories. I'm not too up on what happened before this accident. I mean, I can remember some stuff that I have to deal with on a daily basis that's hammered into my head.
But investigators didn't buy his story. At the time of his arrest for shooting his son, Zeiler never mentioned any cognitive issues.
He was sharp. That was in August of 2016. Fast forward to September of 2016, he didn't know anything.
Police confronted Zeiler about the sudden change in his mental state.
You gave them very clear recollection of a lot of things that you were saying you don't know now. Convenient, correct?
Well, that was, at the time, it was fresh in my head.
Your plans?
No, I'm not.
Investigators then told Zeiler what they believed he already knew. He was the prime suspect in a double murder. And a comment he made while police collected his DNA made it obvious he had no trouble grasping what that meant for his future.
Zeiler, on his own, said, "What is the death penalty in Florida?" Which is a pretty big question to ask at that point.
And it seemed clear that Zeiler would have to face the answer head-on after his DNA came back as a match to the biological evidence collected from Robin Cornell.
It was 1 in 700 billion. Those are just numbers that are not even on the earth.
Zeiler's DNA was also a match to the hair collected from Lisa Story's body. Detective Ellis couldn't wait to tell Jan Cornell that her painful journey for answers was over. She drove to Jan's home to deliver the news in person.
It was probably close to 9 p.m. She was like, "What's up?" I just stood there for a minute and looked at her and I said, "We got him, Jan."
All I could say was, "Oh my God," and cry.
It was pretty, extraordinary. It was just amazing, emotional, exciting, exhilarating.
Investigators never found anything linking Zeiler to other unsolved crimes, nor did they discover a motive for him to specifically target Jan, Robin, or Lisa. Still, State Attorney Amira Fox was confident that the evidence police had collected was more than enough for her to pursue the death penalty.
In this case, there were some of the strongest aggravating factors that exist under Florida law. The crime was heinous, atrocious, and cruel.
When the trial finally began, it was challenging for Jan Cornell to control her emotions.
I had to sit on my hands because they were shaking so bad. When he stared at me and I looked into his eyes, all I could think of was that was the last thing they saw, was that evil man's eyes.
But Jan was there, front and center, when the jury returned from its deliberations. What was your reaction when you heard the guilty verdict?
I just kept hearing it over and over and over in my head, guilty. That is what I had prayed for almost 33 years. The person that did this was going to pay for what he did to them.
The verdict was also a relief for all the members of law enforcement who had spent decades on the case.
3 generations of detectives that worked this case, past chiefs, the current chiefs, the complete family and friends, we all stood together as one team. It was very meaningful for all of us.
During the sentencing phase, Jan Cornell chose to ignore Joseph Zeiler.
I wanted to tell him what a piece of scum he was. I wanted to berate him in every way I could, but a psychological profiler said to me, "He's a psychopath." He will love that. He will love knowing the pain and how broken you and your family were.
In the end, 61-year-old Joseph Zeiler got what he feared the most, a death sentence.
Nothing can take the place of hearing the words today that justice for Robin and justice for Lisa has happened.
Sometimes it is a long path to get justice, but the justice can and will be done with a great deal of hard work, great teamwork, and an immense amount of patience from all the partners involved in this case.
Jan has also found comfort in knowing that she had kept her promise to Lisa Story's mother.
She went out to visit Lisa's mom and dad. She put flowers on all the graves, and she puts these little windmill things that blow in the breeze. And she says if they're turning, that means that they can hear you.
It was a fitting end to a heartbreaking journey. After 33 years of torment, Jan Cornell can finally grieve her loss with peace of mind. What do you miss most about Robin?
We used to lay in bed at night and tell each other stories. She'd tell me stories about things that happened to her, and then I'd tell her stories about things that happened to me when I was a kid, and she'd be like, "Oh my God, really, Mom?" I miss her voice. I miss her laugh. She had an amazing laugh. She was a lot of fun.
State Attorney Fox is confident that the cold case unit that solved this case will help bring justice to other families as well. I'm Paula Zahn. Please join us again next time when we're back on the case. On an all-new season of On the Case.
We need an ambulance right away. It's a murder scene.
How shocking was it that she had been attacked while the rest of her family was sleeping?
It's heart-wrenching. You think you're safe in your own home.
On her left leg was written, "I was here."
The killer meant to send a message.
My world stopped. I would just cry.
Where the victim's voice is never silenced.
I was going to find this monster that killed her. He was out there.